Welcome everyone to the another episode. Today we have Deborah Bauer all the way from the US. So Deborah coming from a background of sales and marketing. So she's expert in specializing creative strategies, creative marketing plans, brands and campaign that drives business and sales coaching. So her spiritual healing journey has been crucial to her success. So she is committed to sharing her struggles, helping to other women develop emotional strength and confidence. She's passionate about women's issues and also host of a podcast, which is Deal with Hills, where female entrepreneurs thrive. So where she is discussing marketing, sales strategies, mindset, personal growth. She also is the author of her book, which is Five Steps for Mindset for Success. So in this episode, we're going to learn more about Deborah's journey, how she started her business from ground up after age 50s and everything in between, the ups and downs she has to go through, things, lessons she had to learn. So she's going to share everything in this show. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show Deborah. Welcome to the show, and how are you doing today?
I am doing amazing. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure, and absolutely excited to have the conversation with you. And it's really really exciting for like someone over 50 starting something from ground up. It's never easy, let alone in your 50s, because I'm 31, and when I think about like if I lose everything and starting something in this age, it's sometimes it's terrifying. So that's a conversation going to be really, really interesting. But before we get to like how you started everything from age 50 plus, I like to know background of yourself, very, very early age, like where you growing up as a child, how was your upbringing looks like? Did you knew like in the bottom of your heart or something like I'm going to be a business owner one day and going to start something, like how you have a life right now?
Well, I grew up in Oklahoma, which is in the pretty much center of the United States, just north of Texas. And I grew up in a very rural community, a small town. My father died when I was young, and I was raised by a single mom. She was a nurse and very independent, which I'm sure had an impact on me growing up. To make I'm a very independent person, and I did all the things, right? I graduated, I was top of my class, I went to college at Oklahoma State University and graduated from there, got married, had kids, did the whole thing, climbing the corporate ladder, right?
Mm,
And I think that that's what kind of was expected of me when I was growing up. I was a smart kid and really one of those kids that I'm kind of good at most things that I try, annoyingly so sometimes my friends say, but it which was great, right? Nothing better than being pretty good at most things you can try when you're a kid. But it left me with kind of a lack of direction, and like most people have like, well, you're super good at math and suck at everything else, so you're going to go be an engineer. And
yeah.
I was very, you know, how that you kind of have something that you're really really good at. And I was pretty good at most things and not really outstanding at anything in particular,
Mhm.
but pretty good. I was an athlete. I played point guard until I was your age, actually. And I did all of those things. Then I got divorced and eventually I got remarried. And my husband had two kids also. And we had four kids under the age of 7.
Right.
And that typically falls on the female, on the mom. And of course, we can't both work 60 hours a week and raise 4 kids and expect them not to be criminals when they get up, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you just can't. I'm not able to do that. I was raised to always try my best and do a good job, and so I sacrificed a lot raising those 4, and then I adopted a 5th child. That was a teenager. That was a blood relative, and he was homeless, and so I became his legal guardian also. So I have 5, and they range in ages now from 31 to 23. So they are all great kids, but I sacrificed who I was doing all of those things. And that's not necessary to do, but it just fell into like my psyche way of doing that. I was a big people pleaser, make everyone else happy. And when you're a mom, you do that anyway, right?
Mm.
Everyone's needs comes before yours if you're a mom, especially your kids. So when 2020 and the pandemic hit, like a lot of people, I had big changes happen in my life. I was caring for my mom. She was diagnosed with cancer at 27 in 2017, and she lived with me off and on for 5 years during that time. And look at me, I was just taking care of everybody. And
Yeah.
then 2020 hit, and my marriage fell apart. My kids were all grown and left the nest. And then in 2021, my mother died.
Oh, wow.
And
I'm so sorry for your loss.
it, the singular
Yeah.
worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And it happens to all of us. It's not something that's unique, but my mom was just my person. And you lose the one person that knows everything about you,
Mm.
right? She knew everything about me and loved me, and I could talk to her. She was my person. And I was really overwhelmed with grief and the loss of my marriage grief, the my kids leaving my nest. I had this whole thing, and there was one person left to take care of, me, and I had absolutely no idea how to do it, what I was going to do. I was depressed and skinny, and I was an athlete. I was used to feeling strong, and I did not feel strong at all. I felt frail, really, and I sat there starting over. My ex-husband gambled our entire savings away, and so I literally had nothing. And I said, "This is it. I have a lot I want to accomplish still in my life, and I have a lot of ground to make up, and I cannot do it if I feel like this. I don't want to feel like this anymore." And at the time, I was at a temp job, and I'm trying to kind of figure out what I was going to do with my life, right?
Yeah.
Because I had sacrificed so much. I had been running my husband's construction company, and all the things that go with that, and I had not even considered what I might want to do or where my passions were. And so that was where I was sitting, very rock bottom, and I got into grief counseling. And while I was in there, I figured out a lot of other stuff too, of course, and changed my life. He helped me in so many ways. But one of the biggest things that he did, I remember this very vividly. I was in his office, and I was really venting to him about procrastinating.
Mm.
I was procrastinating, and I there were things, they weren't difficult to do. I was perfectly capable of doing them, but for whatever reason, I just couldn't do them, and it was frustrating. And of course, I was very hard on myself about it. I think we're harder on ourselves in most ways than anybody else could ever be to us. So I would be incredibly hard on myself. Why can't you do it? Why are you being lazy? You're so unmotivated. And he let me go on probably for about 10 minutes. And then he said, "Deborah, you're not procrastinating." And I said, "I am. You're not listening to me. I just told
Right.
you I was procrastinating." And he said, "No, you're not. You're in fight or flight, and you're the deer.
Mm.
You literally are in freeze, and you can't make a decision because you're like the deer in the headlight that stands in the road and won't move." And that was so life-changing to me to realize that I'm not really procrastinating, I'm not being lazy. If there was one thing on my to-do list that triggered me to go into fight or flight, then I couldn't do anything on the whole list. And he gave me some grounding exercises that will snap me right out of fight or flight. It will anyone that's in it. And you can Google it. It's called the 5 4 3 2 1 grounding exercise.
Yeah.
And honestly, I know it changed my life so much just to realize that I'm actually not consciously making that decision,
Mm.
and that
Yeah.
I can pop myself out of it, and then I can actually do it without any stress at all. But it irrationally was popping me into that place. And that singular thing helped me probably more than anything understand that sometimes we're being really hard on ourselves for something that we aren't consciously in control of, right? We're being
Yeah.
triggered by something that we don't even remember consciously happening to us. And that sent me on the quest to heal all of those things. I don't want to
Yeah.
feel like this anymore. I don't want what Einel does or what Daphne does or this person does to affect me emotionally because I don't feel that way about them, but I have these big feelings that come up when something happens. And that sent me on that quest of figuring out what those things are and how to deal with them. And it's a lifelong quest. I certainly haven't perfected it, but I will tell you those things did more to change how I thought about the world and how I spoke to myself, which is really important more than positive affirmations, more than anything else, is how do you talk to yourself about your day?
Yeah.
How do you encourage yourself? So for me, those were really big things. And it led me to taking the steps that I needed to really change my life.
And how long after like your marriage fall apart? Like you've been married for quite a long time, isn't it?
I had been married 20 years,
Oh wow.
20 years and raised 5 kids with him.
Yeah.
And even if you are the one making the choice to end a relationship, whether that's a business partnership, a friendship, a family member maybe that you've chosen that not to have in your life, or a marriage or a partnership relationship, even if you're the one choosing, the loss of that person taking up space in your life, right? I used to spend my day, I would talk to that person. We talk all the business of life that you conduct with those people that you're close to. And when they're gone, you have to grieve that loss. You can't be upset with yourself for feeling upset. You can't second guess your choices. When you've made that choice, it's still going to hurt. Sometimes I think it hurt worse when I was the one doing it than when I was getting my heart broken. You know, there's just something
Mm.
about causing pain to another individual that went against everything that I had done. I was such a people pleaser. I made everybody else happy. And now I'm not only inflicting pain on my husband, but on my kids. It was really hard to not go back to my husband and put that marriage back together and make every single other person in my life happy because it would have. They
Yeah.
all were traumatized, right? And I still, the relationship with my stepkids that I raised, we had custody of, is still not quite the same. But I built those bridges back, but it was difficult. I felt like a horrible mother, and it took every ounce of will I have not to make everyone else happy and sacrifice myself yet again. And I
Mm.
didn't. So it is, 50 years is a long time of bad habits. And I they were bad habits because they weren't good for me, but I don't regret any of them, honestly.
So during the time like
Uh,
it was COVID, isn't it?
During COVID, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And my
It's just like
mom didn't
losing your
die.
mom.
Yes. Well, she didn't have COVID. She actually got a urinary tract infection that went
Mm.
septic.
All right.
And right, and she did some immunotherapy that was what saved her life from the cancer, but it gave her an autoimmune disease, which could be equally deadly, but it's just a lot. She was 84 years old
Yeah.
and obviously tough old broad fighting really hard, and that, eventually she just couldn't her body couldn't defend anymore.
Mm.
And it was time, but it she that was in 2021. We were all kind of just adjusting, right? But
Yeah.
it was terrifying when she was at the hospital and they didn't have an ICU bed for her. And so it was during that really busy, scary time for sure.
And how did you like hold yourself up like during that time since like everything is like chaotic moment because a lot of things locked down and is hard with like for everyone, like with their work, job, and like you going through your personal life is back to back situation with your own divorce, losing your mother, and probably with your career as well. Like, what did you do to like is keeping yourself calm, like not like giving up on yourself?
I I'm an avid meditator. For had meditated, I don't know, for about 10 years probably at that point. And so I do really love meditation. But what the first things that I did to really take control of how I was feeling was, they were physical, the first things I did, because remember I said I felt frail,
Mm,
and that was very unlike me, right? I was used to feeling strong because I was athletic and I played even into my adulthood. I was had a high activity level. But at this point, I was stopping by and getting fast food and bringing it home and sitting on my bed and eating it and watching TV. Terrible habits and just not really taking care of my physical body, which affects how we feel mentally. So I was in counseling, but I made some non-negotiable boundaries with myself, and those were my first steps. And the first one was I'm not going to eat fast food.
right.
I'm just not going to. I love to cook. I'm a great cook. It was different to cook for one person than cooking for an army of children and big family. And my youngest children were boys, and so boys eat a lot, and that was an adjustment. And I think it was a memory that I just hadn't found my way yet. So that was the first thing. I'm not going to eat fast food. And the second one was I'm not going to eat in my bedroom. I've got a nice open plan. And so I would cook and be out amongst the living, even if it's just in my space with my dogs.
Mm,
And then for me, being strong again and getting back on an exercise routine. And of course, I do kickboxing, right? Because I was an
right.
athlete. So when I'm coaching someone, I don't tell them you have to be healthy and your body needs to get in shape. I'm certainly not an expert in that, but I think it's very important, in fact, critical for your mindset that you make healthy choices for your body so that your brain, the choices you make affect how you think about yourself. So if I'm making healthy choices, then I'm moving in that right direction. So whether it's simple, like I'm going to take a walk every day outside in nature, and then I'm going to do that today. Sometimes I'm just going to say, I'm going to do it today and I'm going to do it tomorrow. And I focus on one day. And then pretty soon my goal, I'm going to do 7 days. And then pretty soon you've got that mastered. And now you can add something else because it gives you confidence to build. I found that incredibly helpful for me, that if I just gave myself small goals, and they were indeed physical at the beginning because I needed to feel well. And I truly believe that our physical body, our vessel,
Yeah.
has to be able to hold our blessings, right? We want all of the good things that are ours, that life has to offer us. But many times we aren't physically prepared and emotionally, maybe, to receive those. And think about it. We see people all the time that get their blessings before they can hold them. And we
Mm,
see them get hooked on drugs. We see them wreck cars, and we see all kinds of bad things happen to people that seemingly have everything they would ever want in life.
yeah.
So, right, it's important that we're able to physically do with the work necessary for our blessings.
Did you get any
Um,
kind of support from like your friends, family, or like you had to do everything on your own?
I I did get support, but part of my losing myself during the time that I was raising my kids and being a good mom and doing all the things, a good wife, was that I isolated myself.
Mm,
Oftentimes when we know something's wrong, right? I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't make a decision to fix it because I was in functional freeze even back then. And so I think, um, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, Einel. I had a little caught in my throat. Can you repeat the
yeah.
question?
Yeah. So, like, is there any support did you get from your friends and
Oh,
family during that time? Yeah.
right. I was talking about how much I had isolated myself. And I think sometimes when we know something's wrong, we don't want to be around our friends and talk about it because then we have to make a decision about it. And I had really done that. I was really in mom mode. I didn't have a lot of free time anyway with all of those kids, but I reached out. I really did have to reach back and find people that I was comfortable being vulnerable with, which is not something that was easy for me.
Mm.
And so I did get a lot of help from family members and from friends that I reached out to that were old friends, actually, and that reminded me who I am and who I was and how great I am and all the wonderful things about me that I didn't tell myself anymore. And it was really amazing to have them come back with that kind of input. And I think part of that was pride. I didn't want to admit that I had failed. I didn't want to admit I was in a bad place. I was feeling prideful. So I never reached out when I was having trouble before I had lost everything. And had I done that, I might have had an easier process going through it had I had those friends to remind me who I am and what they see in me. I
Yeah.
that was a big step, reaching out to them and kind of getting the old groove back, right? Feeling
Mm.
back in my own skin and remembering who I am at my core before I became the mom and the wife and the perfect business person and all of those things with all of the expectations.
And when did you like decided you want to start your own marketing agency?
Well, that took a little bit of time. I realized I wanted to be back in marketing and I never really gave it all the way up. But I when you own a business that's a big business, you spend a lot of time running the business, not doing all the things that you love. Like my little part that I loved got done, but there's so many other things that dominated my time. But marketing and sales have always been my true love. I'm very good at it, and so I knew fairly quickly that that's what I wanted to do. And I had one like marketing job working for somebody else that was really not. It wasn't the perfect thing for me, but it let me have a job doing something that I really enjoyed. And reminded me again why I really love it. Got me back into the connections that I had lost. And as I went through applying for different marketing corporate jobs, the weirdest things would happen to cause me to not get a job.
Mm.
And eventually it became, okay, maybe this isn't the way I'm supposed to go. Right?
Right. Yeah.
I think we miss the obstacles and we try so hard to force things because we decided this is what we're going to do. And then when it doesn't work, it's like the universe saying, Deborah, come on. I'm giving you all the hints. Don't go that way. And it took me a little bit to finally listen. And I was approached by a couple of companies that wanted me to do side work for them. To do agency work basically for them. And I had done a little freelance work for them, and so I started my agency and I had a couple of clients, and I knew immediately this is my place. I feel so much better and very much in my own skin. And then a year later, I started Deals with Heels, my podcast after that. And then a year after that, I took over as solo host and sole producer of my podcast. So I've been really growing and having, it looks like kind of fairly small little steps along the way, but some of them were just huge in how it affected my mindset and my ability to accomplish what I needed to accomplish.
Yeah. Very inspiring. And you have written your own book as well, which is Five Steps for Mindset for Success. And talk about a little bit about that. Like, what kind of 5 steps or 5 days, like we're talking about?
hmm Um, though it's a short ebook that I wrote about, and they're the actual 5 steps that I took when I was going through all of my changes. And those first ones are the physical steps that I talked about before. And those are really important that you and they're cumulative, right? They build a little bit too. And then the next one is really trusting and understanding that what's meant for you is always for you.
Mm.
And so you just have to align towards that goal and that message in order to receive it. And then the next one is to do the action, right? Oftentimes people think that they're manifesting or they're praying for something and they're just sitting back and praying for it and that it's going to happen. But we have to take action that aligns with that goal. So let's say I want to be top salesperson where I work. Then I'm going to have to put the effort in to be the top salesperson. I've got to have the attitude of a top salesperson. I've got to do the work. I've got to actually go out and prospect. I've got to go through and close deals. I've got to do the work. But if I do the work, then will reach that goal. So it has to be that aligned work. And I'm not talking about hustle because I
Mm.
spent a long time hustling. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about aligning towards it. And then you don't have to work so hard. And a really good example from the sales perspective is when it's when you get a deal and you have deals in your pipeline, it's hard to prospect. It's just the nature kind of sales of having to constantly bring in new to put in your pipeline so that the sales process as it goes through, you constantly are adding people in there. But it's a common thing for someone to go, "Oh wow, I'm out of prospects." So rather than go out and get a new prospect and they will dig up old deals that
Yeah.
weren't deals before, but they can't let that go. And so they're taking action that isn't really aligned with finding what's meant for them. You're forcing that. So that's really the best way to say it. When we try to force something, and I don't know about you, but anytime in my own businesses, in my own life, or for a client, anytime they try to force it, it's like that commission breath. I need the money. And so maybe you lower your price or you make an accommodation that you don't normally make for a client because that's not part of your brand. And that's not how every single time I've done that, I've regretted it. I've regretted it. It turned out to
Mm.
be a problem client for me, which they might not be a problem client for somebody else, but I forced it. And we can force things that we don't really align with. And we know when we're doing it, it feels kind of off a little bit, but I'm doing it. And every time I've done that, I've regretted it. So rather than do that,
Yeah.
then go up here, find your people, your actual people. But we have a tendency to slip into that old action and it's hard to pop out of it, but that taking aligned action is really, really important. And finally, trusting that those are the right steps and believing that they are, and I know that I'm the top sales rep. I just have to go out here and do the work, and all my clients will come and that I'll give them great service and do all of the things. And if you align to that and you trust you're on the right path, this is the way, no matter what the universe puts in front of me, I'm going to listen to that message and I'm going to take aligned action towards where my goals are. If you do those things, then your mindset will be in a place where the universe will reward you, or God, or spirit, or whatever it is for you. But aligning towards that, because what's yours, you already have. It's there waiting for you to
Yeah.
just align to it. But you got to let go. That's part of it, making space for what's yours. So let go of that old client that's not really a client, that old prospect. You're still holding on to it, and it's maybe your fail safe. That's
Mm.
another big thing that I've learned recently, I know, is lots of times we'll have something in our mind that we think, well, as long as I have that, that's my fail safe. Like I've got this client, they're always going to be my client. That's like my fail safe. I pay these bills with that client. And we often think that that's foundational for us, right? I've
Yeah.
got this. This is my foundation. What I've discovered is that lots of times it's the anchor that's holding you down from flying. And that as soon as that's gone, all of this opportunity comes flooding in because you had to make space for it. Not just like space in the time of your day, mental space, emotional space, right? That one client takes up so emotional space because you don't want to lose them. You're your foundation. They take up time and effort, and all of your mind, thought work are all still part of this client you can't let go of. And as soon as it's gone, and for me, oftentimes it's not a choice, right? The universe helps me because I am stubborn and I refuse to make choices. Then something will happen that causes, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a client or whatever it is, to be gone. And in my experience, not just my personal experience, but clients and friends, boy, when that one thing goes, you realize it was an albatross around your neck, holding you down, anchoring you, keeping you from flying. So when you lose something, be grateful, rejoice
Yeah.
in the rejection, because that means something fantastic is coming your way to fill that spot. It's hard to think about it that way, but once you can make that mindset shift, your life will change in immeasurable ways.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So, Deborah, we're nearly coming to the end of this podcast. I have a one last question for you before we wrap up here. If anyone wants to start their own dream or own business, whatever they waiting all this along, like they want to start something, they may be thinking like it's too late for them. They're on their 40s, 50s, 60s. So how would you advise them or encourage them to going after their dreams?
I definitely want them to know that it's never too late. I feel better and am healthier today at 58 than I was in my 40s. I'm more in my own skin today than I have been in a couple of decades. And I would not change anything that happened to me. I wouldn't change anything that I did that I'm definitely not proud of, and there's some of that. I wouldn't change the things that caused me so much pain. I spent so much time on my knees crying about. And the reason I would never change them is because they brought me to the here and now, right here talking to you. And I like it here. I'm more in my own skin than I've ever been. And I'm 58. Life feels like it's a new beginning for me. And I think that's true. If we live to be 80, 90 years old, 50 is nothing, right? The key is to be healthy so that you can meet those dreams. That's why that physical aspect of it was really important for me. And so my challenge to your audience would be to take every day just 5 minutes and sit by yourself. I like to do it outside in nature, but of course, depends on where you are. Um, with nothing, no screens, no music, no distractions, no technology at all. Just sit outside with nothing but your thoughts. And your thoughts are going to be flooded, and that's good. Let them come. Let them come. Let them eventually do it for 30 days in a row. Just 30 days, 5 minutes sitting by yourself. And what will happen is your dream will solidify.
Yeah.
I get creative downloads during that time. And so feel really clustered in there at first, and just let it come. But eventually, your thoughts will come together and you will get ideas about that dream, and it will come. The path that you're supposed to take will become evident. And pretty soon, I predict that by day 30, you'll be spending more than 5 minutes, but 5 minutes is enough. If you can do 5 minutes every day, then that dream will start to solidify. You will start seeing the things about yourself that you need to strengthen in order to have that dream, and the path, the next steps, they will come in during that time when you're alone.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing the advice. So, Deborah, we are nearly coming to the end of this podcast. So, before we wrap up here, if anyone wants to learn more about yourself, your business, or they want to follow your podcast, where's the best place to find you all?
They can find all of that at dealswithheels.com. You can link to my podcast on any platform. It is on every platform and YouTube. And episode 75 premiered today, which is a really big step for me. And my guest was my former co-host. She's done amazing things over the last year, so that is exciting for me. And I'd love for everyone to check that out. My business agency is hexagonmedia.net. You can link also from my podcast website to that as well. And I'm on
Uh,
all the social media platforms, but probably LinkedIn's the best one to get me and have a conversation.
all right, that's great. Thank you so much for your time. I wish you very best of luck with everything you're doing, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Einol. I had a great time sharing my story. I hope that your audience found it valuable.
Yeah, I appreciate that as well. So that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode with Deborah. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If anyone wants to find her, you can visit her website, or also you can find her podcast. I'm going to put all the links in the description for you to get to her easily. Till then, talk to you in the next episode. Take care.